Society, specifically Instagram, like really demonizes any kind of intervention these days.
And I just looked at her and she's like, did you know she was Breech? I'll never forget, that's what she said. She said, did you know she was Breech? And I just, my mind was, does his face look like I know she was Breech? Like, no, I didn't know she was Breech. Things got even crazier because we tried to pivot a few times.
I was optimistic just because I figured that's all we could do. But I mean, there was definitely a part deep inside of me that was like, this is not good, and I didn't prepare myself or research any of this, so I have zero context of what any of this really means or how serious this is.
Like, obviously you plan to have the baby at home, so like
I don't have anything packed.
Yeah, packing for yourself, packing for your baby, packing for an overnight stay in another city.
Okay, well, today we are going to share a birth story for the first time publicly, which I'm really excited about. And the whole point of this podcast is to connect with other moms so that you don't feel alone. And if I'm being honest, at times my birth story has made me feel a little bit isolated because there's a lot of aspects of it that are not very relatable. Not many people are like, have this warm fuzzy reaction of like, oh, that happened to me too. Most people are kind of like shocked and like, oh my God, that happened. So I'm really excited to just kind of get it off my chest because I want to document the story, of course, you know, it's my experience, kind of talk through it and everything. But also I want to connect with other moms who maybe you had a super unexpected birth story, things didn't go the way you planned. Maybe there's parts of my birth story you can relate to. Maybe it's actual parts of it that are similar. Or maybe it's just, you know, ways that you felt during your entire birth journey, or maybe it's just the fact that your birth story was wildly different than you expected. Maybe that's all that you can relate to, but I just want moms to know that it's okay, because that was kind of a tough pill for me to swallow at first. It's like, wow, that was very different than what I expected. But like we were just talking about just before we started recording, is that's a variation of normal, is for things to go a little crazy and a little different than expected. And that happens more often than I think is talked about. And so I'm excited. I feel like I'm already maybe getting slightly emotional because it's just going to be a kind of vulnerable to share and open up, because there are so many details that I feel like, you know, need to be shared in order to see like the big picture of my story. Because if I just rush right through it, it's kind of like, how'd you end up there? So yeah, I'm excited to relate with other moms who just, whether you had a vaginal birth, a C-section, whatever it was, whether it went different or, you know, just unexpected, it's okay. So I have my two favorite people here with me, which is great. My husband, of course, because this is our birth story. He was a massive part of my journey. So I'm really excited you're here to also kind of process things with me. I mean, we've talked about a lot of things, and you know, the ebbs and flows of me processing you've been a huge part of, but kind of document some of your feelings as well is very important. And then of course my doula, who's one of the best in the entire nation. You are just also a very integral part, and I want to kind of touch on that here in a little bit about how important it is to have like the right support people around you. But one of the best parts about Olivia, my doula, is that you really help me process not only before the birth experience and going into it and having right expectations, but also during it, you know, kind of being the right person to bounce things off of me, and like my mind and as I was processing, but also after, you know, helping me process. So there's no one better to be here, you know, kind of asking the questions and helping us talk through it and reflect back, but also just kind of prepare other moms, because you see so many variations of normal as well. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this with us.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. We filmed another podcast a couple of weeks ago, and so it's really cool to be back, but almost on the other side of the interview. I'm going to be interviewing you guys. I also think it's really important to note that since you are expecting baby number 2, this will be really special for you guys to really honor the story for all that it is, truly all the good, bad, and ugly, and appreciate it. And I hope that it'll give you guys something to reflect on before going into your next birthing experience. Yeah,
for sure. Which is crazy. That's a whole nother vulnerable moment. Just kind of like preparing ourselves again, and not, you know, like bringing lessons from our first experience without like bringing fear, or you know, like it's kind of a fine line. So that's kind of funky, but but yeah. Anything you want to add? Are you excited to get anything off your chest?
No, I'm just excited to be here.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to get off my chest other than I think that the biggest thing is, from a man's perspective as a partner, I think it's so important to walk through the journey from the beginning all the way until the end, because if you just try to catch up at the end, if things don't go as planned, it gets really crazy. So I think holistically, from the very first appointment, whether it's at an OB, midwife, wherever, being extremely engaged there and just understanding how the whole process works and what your wife or your partner wants and how to support that and how to really help bring that around full circle. So that's the one thing I would say.
Yeah.
Heck
great.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a good piece of advice before we even got started. I love it. That's how you know this is going to be a good podcast. All right. Well, I think that we should start at the very beginning. Like, tell us about when you guys got pregnant and like how you knew that this was the route that you guys wanted to go down, like why you picked the people that you did, and just kind of from the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I didn't know for sure I wanted a home birth. I had met someone many years ago when I was in nursing school, and I never really knew too much about natural birth. Actually, my mom had me without an epidural. So I'm like, oh, there's natural birth and there's, birth with epidural. So I kind of, in my mind, just knew I wanted to at least have one of my children naturally, because my mom has 3 kids. I was the first, and she was like, I wanted to at least experience it once. So I kind of had that in my head, that I wanted to at least try first, my first time around without, medication or least amount of intervention. And then I think the more I did like labor and delivery clinicals and stuff like that, and just like, you see all kinds of stuff. I mean, I used to think I want to be a labor and delivery nurse, and in ways I still do, because I love supporting that process, but I just saw a lot of the craziness. I mean, even people who don't even want their babies, and it's like hard. I was like, I don't know if I'd be able to support, like everyone like that. But just being able to see the good, the bad, the ugly, all in between, I'm like, what if something crazy is going on in the room next to me? It just kind of started making me be like, maybe I don't even want to be in a hospital. And then a friend of mine in nursing school, she went to a birth center, I think, and then the rest of hers were home birth. If I remember correctly, I'm like, what is that? Wait, I didn't even know that was a thing, because I was like nowhere near like baby making season then. But so I kind of knew, I was like, wanted something in that sense. She would talk about birth all positively, like really left this imprint on my heart where I'm like, she like loved it. And even other people in nursing school were like, you're weird. And I'm like, I don't know, I think I'm gonna be like her. And so I kind of knew I'd probably at least call birthing centers or home birth midwives when we got pregnant, and so I did. And I remember calling a couple birth centers, and one of them was like, oh, it just kind of depends. You might be able, we can plan for home birth, but you might have to come into the birth center. And I'm like, I'm going to make a birth plan, which slightly ironic now looking back, but I'm like, I'm make a birth plan, we're sticking to it. I want that to be the plan. And so I wasn't comfortable with like some of like the, I don't know, just, I didn't want to have to plan to leave my house. Again, this is all very ironic looking back, but I didn't want to have to plan to leave my house or pack a hospital bag. I'm like, honestly, the idea of just being in my home sounds amazing. Everybody coming to me whenever they feel like is necessary. I just kind of quickly got attached to that idea the more midwives I talked to, because I did interview a few. And when I actually talked to you first, I know I've probably said this maybe even on the last podcast, but you were just so like warm and welcoming. I'd already followed you on Instagram, and I like knew you were awesome, and like we have mutual friends and stuff, but I remember being like, wait, your name's Olivia? Wait, you're the office manager? Oh wait, we're friends, like I know you. And so that was really cool. I just kind of felt like it was like my friends or sisters that I just like wanted to walk through the process with. And then with our consultation, it was just like clear as day. I remember Mandy saying, because I was like, so I just always dreamed of like this undisturbed moment of like lifting my baby out of the water and things. And so I asked her about that. I'm like, so, because one of the things I'm just personally not a fan of in a hospital, which to each their own, is all of the rubbing and aggressiveness when a baby first comes out, just like stimulating them like a lot, which may be necessary at times, like I'm not here to talk trash because I know there's protocol for a reason. But at the same time, it was just, I wanted something very peaceful and serene and things. And so I asked her about that moment, and she said, honestly, my gloves don't even get dirty, and you have the natural instincts to take over. Baby looks great, you look great, like I'm just there for if you need me. I'm like, where do I sign the papers? This is amazing. That sounds perfect. So that was it. And then the rest of the history, y'all are my midwives, which was a huge blessing, as we walked through everything, because I had a very low risk pregnancy. Everything was gravy the whole way through for the most part. So I really loved walking through the process on a couch, in a comfortable environment, home birth, and having like those types of midwives with that type of vibe was definitely exactly what I was looking for. So it was a huge blessing.
So then leading up to, the end of your pregnancy, you felt super connected and supported with your team. Totally. Like you didn't have any concerns leading up until...
No, definitely not. I will say that I feel like portion of my story that's important from the beginning is I, wanted least amount of interventions possible. I actually had a friend of mine who had a baby about 6 months before me. She went through the whole pregnancy with no ultrasounds, had a perfect home birth, perfectly healthy baby. And I was like, wow, that's like the epitome of no intervention. She was in a different state. I think Florida might require the 20-week scan, but in the state she's in, they do not. And so I was like, you didn't even do your anatomy scan? Like, she's like, no, like everything looked great and the baby was healthy. So not that I was like, I don't want to say like I idolized that or anything, but I was just kind of like, that was just a whole nother standard that I didn't even know was possible. So going into my pregnancy, I'm like, I'm going to try to do as least amount possible if that's the actual thing. But we ended up having trouble with dating. Right when I ovulated and stuff was like kind of hairy and confusing. So we did have to do an early ultrasound to confirm my due date. So I was at 6 weeks. And then I traveled to high elevation when I was like, I think 10 or 11 weeks. And so I actually experienced some bleeding, which was super scary. And so when I came back in town, we're like, well, let's do an ultrasound, make sure it's okay. And then my daughter, which her name's Evelyn. So if you hear me say Evelyn a bunch, like, I thought her name was Olivia. Evelyn's my daughter. I don't think I've said that, or our daughter. But yeah, so we checked on Evelyn. She was doing great. She's actually bouncing around. But already, I'm like not even 12 weeks pregnant. I've had 2 ultrasounds. So I think going into the rest of my pregnancy, I'm like, after the 20-week ultrasound, like, we are done. Like, I do not want any more. There's already 2 more than I wanted to have, and I for sure have to have the 20 weeks. So I was already kind of like, obviously it's not like complications, but I think in my mind I was just kind of like already wanting to pump the brakes. And then when I had my 20-week ultrasounds, actually one of the first times I ever called you like as my doula. Of course, we like planned for you to be on my care team and stuff, but I was kind of freaking out because I felt absolutely terrible after my anatomy scan. I don't know why my body or nervous system responded the way it did, but I just had a terrible migraine, which is like not great when you're 20 something weeks pregnant. It's just like not a good thing to have. So yeah, I just, after that was like, we're not doing anymore. Like that was the last one. I'm so done. So I think that hard boundary ended up maybe not benefiting me in the long run. But I do like to mention that because sometimes people will be like, why didn't you just get another ultrasound? But it was like, I'd already had 3 more than I kind of wanted to have. And I also didn't respond well to the 20 weeks. So, but yeah, other than that, I had the best care team ever. And yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, other than those couple, like the ultrasounds, I mean, all the appointments are great. Everything else, I love how home birth midwives, I think, tend to focus on just more holistically how you're feeling rather than just checking in on your pregnancy. I loved how you were asking me, even as we got later, and I think it was Maya was asking me like, so what's your plan with stopping work, or what's your plan with this, or Alex, how are you feeling? Because he was at every appointment with me. It wasn't only like statistical data, it's kind of like helping me emotionally, like walk through things. So I'm really, really confident in the team I chose. Even as things progress and change, looking back, I'm like, I had the best team to help me ebb and flow through the different things that came up.
Definitely. And what about you, Alex? Did you feel our love and support through the whole way?
Yeah, no, I definitely felt y'all's love and support. I mean, I feel like the main thing that we really enjoyed about working with you all was there was never your agenda above our agenda. It was always, you wanted to allow us to kind of create the experience, which ironically is what ended up kind of biting us in our butt, which is funny. Like that, it's like that free will that God gives you, right? Like he gives you free will. He lets you do what you please, but sometimes it doesn't always work out in your favor, right? So it's like,
because you chose it.
Because we chose it, yeah. And it's like, there's no one to blame. And I don't even say blame in like a mean way or like negative way, but like, that's the cool part about it.
We can take full responsibility.
Exactly. That's a really good way of putting it. Is like, we can take full responsibility for how things unfolded. Now, obviously, I do believe like God has a plan for everything. So I'm not saying like we take full responsibility, but to a degree, like we decided not to do that towards the end. And I think a big part of it comes from, almost, I know me personally, I'll speak for myself, but I think you and I are pretty in alignment with this. Knowing that like there was this way of delivering and having a baby that everyone has learned since you were little, which is the conventional route. Right. And then it's kind of like you get the veil, torn off, and you realize like, wait a minute, there's this whole other world of natural birth that I've never even heard of. Mm-hmm. So for me personally, it was like, well, I just want to do everything the complete opposite of the normal way, because there's this cool new way. Not cool new, it's actually the cool old way.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how Jesus was born. I mean, let's be honest, in a manger. And so I think that like for me, that's what I loved about working with y'all, was it really was outside of if you were like, hey, this is a medical emergency, or hey, you have to do this because obviously for safety, or for this, like for our best interest or the baby's best interest. But outside of that, it wasn't like, I didn't feel like it was just like a franchise system, like rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So I think that's what I enjoyed the most. But yeah, I will say, you know, if you are coming over to the light side of things and realizing this whole natural birth world, follow your gut, follow what the Holy Spirit's telling you if you have a relationship with God, because with her, ironically, at about 36 weeks, she wanted to have another ultrasound. And I was like, but babe, what's the reason? Like, why do you need it? And, you know, because I'm all like, let's do this, like, you know, the natural way. Which is what I wanted, so he was holding me accountable. I was just holding her accountable, yeah. I wasn't like, you know, like, whatever. You were like talking me out of it, but you're like, you literally said, if you have a really good reason, like, I'm supportive. And I'm like, I said, I just want to see her. Yeah, her reason was, I just want to see her with that cute little face. And I'm like, that's not a reason. I was like, I want to see her too, but we're going to see her in like 4 or 5 weeks. So if that's your only reason, maybe we shouldn't. And the last one gave you this really bad migraine for like 2 days. Yeah. So I'm thinking to myself, we don't need to worry about that. But going back to like listening to your intuition or listening to God, whatever. Maybe a quick one would have been okay. Maybe if you have this strong urge like you did, even if it's unexplainable, because let's be honest, I'm not trying to bring like sex into it, but men usually are a lot more logical and women are usually a lot more emotional and intuition. Your intuition was probably on point, and my logic may have gotten in the way of that, because I'm like, well, logically explain to me why we need to do this, and you couldn't explain that to me. But if you would have just said, I'm having this baby, it's inside of me, and I feel like I need it, I would have stepped down. But it's so funny, we were just like, yeah, I didn't feel that like hard pressed to be like, I really want to. I was just like, you're right, I'm being dramatic. I know. So I don't know if that answers your question. Yes, it did. Yeah. I do think it's really hard because society, specifically Instagram, like really demonizes any kind of intervention these days. And of course we know all the pros and cons of all of these interventions, but sometimes, yeah, like you said, you really just have to listen to your gut and follow your intuition. And yeah, I mean, you guys just did the best that you could at the time. You had no idea. Yeah, and you know. Which, by the way, I don't think anybody knows even what we're talking about, because we haven't gotten there yet. We're coming up on it. We're just reeling in. I guess we can kind of just pick up there. You know, you said around 37 weeks, you know, everything was looking perfectly fine. I mean, you know, you're coming every other week, I think, at that point, and maybe even start coming every week. And the appointments got boring in like a great way, but it was kind of like my pregnancy was great. You know, it wasn't. I didn't think they were boring. I was asking some wild questions. Yeah, and I actually at some point got onto him. I'm like, these are our appointments we're going to remember for the rest of our life. Like, we don't even be talking about to the midwives about this random stuff, like our dog or something. Alex. It was always related to the baby in some way. I can tell you that the midwives loved it. I don't even know what it was, and I'm sure they thoroughly enjoyed it. All I'm saying is there was times where I'm like, Alex, let's try to at least focus on our pregnancy. I get that they're super awesome, but yeah, no, it totally did feel like we were just hanging out with friends, which was great. But we were kind of reaching for topics to talk about, because like, man, we still have 20 minutes. Like, so what do you want to talk about? But no, anyways, so everything in a good way was boring because nothing serious had come up and stuff, and that was great. And so we did mostly like belly mapping, you know, obviously to just figure out where the baby was. Belly mapping because I wouldn't know if I was. Yeah. So belly mapping is just where you feel where the baby is, and you can feel their head, feel their butt, kind of tell the position they're in, which there are many positions that a baby could be in at any time, and they turn and flip and change position. And I do know for sure that she was in the same position the whole time. Like sometimes like maybe she, you know, flipped last minute and stuff. I know for a fact she was always in the same position. I would always be like, I just feel like she's right here in my ribs. Like I would always say it, even when because you do like the craniosacral therapy. I'm like, do you feel like this right here? And you're like, yeah, it looks like she's in a great position, because she was, you know, facing towards my pelvis and everything. Because she was so small, where we were feeling was slightly incorrect, and we didn't know that. So we got closer and closer to my due date. And around 37 weeks, I'm like, maybe I should just see her. We're like, no, we don't need to. Everything looks fine. She feels like she's in a great position. And so we got close to my due date. Right around, I think it was like about 4 or 5 days after I hit 40 weeks. So like right after my due date, which is, you know, 41
plus something is usually
like
first time
3 days
moms
before Christmas.
Yeah, so that's kind of adds a whole aspect to it, you know. But you know, I was not expecting to have my baby on my due date or anything like that. I was hoping it would happen. It was close to your birthday, so that would have been but yeah, due dates are super dumb, so we just flew right past that. You told me, you guys go on a day date, you know, just don't even think about it. So we were following your advice. We had everything ready. I had snacks set out for my birth team. We cleared the living room, moved the couch back. We knew where everything was gonna go. We had our tripod and camera set up. We had like everything perfect because I was starting to feel things, you know, slightly, you know, I don't know, more than Braxton Hicks, but I knew I wasn't in labor, but we were like starting to get our mind focused on like, okay, this could definitely be, I mean, I'm approaching 41 weeks. It's going to be sometime over the next few days, week. So yeah, then I lost my mucus plug. I also felt like some contractions. I'm like, okay, this could progress. Wasn't anything too intense, but then everything totally, actually, I remember being in the bathtub. I just remember I was like, that's when I was texting him like, this actually might be labor. I was timing my contractions for the first time because it started as just like cramps. Then it started getting to like, I wouldn't say like waves of contractions yet, but to the point where I'm like, that stopped. And now I feel like it's going to start again at some point. And they were still, you know, like 5, 7, maybe even 10 minutes apart, but they were starting to like have that influx. And that is one thing that I always wanted to feel. I know it's silly, but I was always so intrigued by that with other people's birth stories.
I'm sure
like,
a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, I'm a birth story like nerd. So I've just always like been like, so it just stopped and you napped and then it started again. Like I just thought that was crazy. So I was really excited to like be like, oh my God, I can time them. Like that was the thing, you know, like it's actually happening. Yeah. Because it feels like, I don't know, fake or something. Like, I don't know, like it feels like, how can that happen?
How is that even possible?
Yeah, it doesn't feel real. But yeah, so that was really exciting. And so I was texting you all like giddy, but trying to get all focused in my zone, you know. But then I went to sleep and I woke up at like 8 in the morning. I was like, well, that was a good night's rest, unfortunately. And so yeah, things just kind of were stalling out. This is when I was approaching now 41 weeks, only a couple days before. And that happened, I think, one more night when you're like, it's okay, don't stress. I'm like, well, I'm getting kind of annoyed, to be honest.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I'm gonna pause. Do you want to add anything or ask anything? Because I don't want to just fly into it all.
I think you're going great. I do want to pause once we get to the big reveal. I want to like ask a million questions.
Okay,
so
don't
keep going.
Okay, so yeah, so then we were approaching 41 weeks, which like you mentioned was right before Christmas, or maybe you mentioned that, I don't know. It was literally like the 22nd. So just to kind of lay it out, Christmas Eve was on Sunday. Christmas Day was on Monday. So when Florida, the law is that you should have to, I don't know, I think it's laws are strict, I guess, you know. So you have to get a ultrasound at 41 weeks just to confirm fluid levels and just everything like that, make sure baby's okay. And so that would have been on a Saturday, but then Christmas Eve and then Christmas Day. So I wouldn't actually be able to get it till I was 41 plus 3. Right. So that's kind of, you know, not 41 weeks, that's 3 days past. And so I remember texting my midwife, she's like, we should probably try to set it up. And I'm like, well, I was already almost in labor, like, what's the point? But then she's like, I don't know, I'm just kind of feeling like maybe we should. And both of us were kind of back and forth because it was like, we either do it Saturday or it's like Tuesday, like we're doing it or not. And I was like, I remember telling Alex something, I wouldn't mind seeing her again, you know, like, sure, we'll check in. And I just remember thinking it was going to be like the most boring thing, you know, like kind of pointless, but all right, we'll see her. And then I'm going to have her like the next day. And so I went to the chiropractor, see if that would kind of get things moving, which he's like, my chiropractor's like, oh yeah, the baby's like perfect position, really dropping down low, all of this. So I'm like hype. And I'm like, whatever, I have to do the stupid ultrasound. Then I was just going to come see you, get some cranial sacral therapy. I thought it was going to be this nice day that'll put me in labor. Like, I just am really setting the stage here because I'm like on the brink of having this baby, like so deep in what I thought was my perfect birth story. And then ... the technician arrives at my house right at 10 a.m. Exactly. So it's like 7 in the morning. Actually, when I woke up, she wasn't going to come till 10 a.m. And I just remember getting up and actually I was starting to write my birth story as it was happening, even though like things hadn't really progressed. And I remember like sitting on my birth ball, like doing my little hip exercises and being like, you're talking about, this was like the calm before I knew things were about to progress, not in the way that they did, but I knew we were on the brink of it. You know, it's like, this is it. This is about to happen. She's going to come, and then I'm seeing Olivia, and then boom, we're just going to roll right into this. And so that I remember feeling, and I didn't know why, I felt it so strongly, but like this was the calm before the storm. He wasn't awake. It was 7 a.m. I was kind of trying to like put myself back into labor, you know, like I was doing the mile circuit and had my birth affirmations, like the whole thing. This was like the last moments of my perfect birth plan when I look back. And then she gets there, and we're just thinking like, okay, this is gonna be so chill, which is awesome. They come to your house, so I'm just chilling on my couch, and she swipes the wand over what should be my baby's butt face up, and it's a brain. It's her head. I just remember, I know ultrasounds, I'm a nurse, and I just looked at her, and she's like, did you know she was breech? I'll never forget, that's what she said. She said, did you know she was breech? And I just, my mind was, does his face look like I know she was breech? Like, no, I didn't know she was breech. So that was a huge shock. And I mean, I'm sure Alex knew, you know, like could tell my panic, but like being a nurse and also knowing so much about birth, I'm just like, that's my ticket to the hospital. Like that is the one thing that we should not find out right now, like worst case scenario. So that was kind of like the pivotal moment where I'm like, everything just changed. Like that was it. So yeah, it was like the world kind of stood still. I just remember staring at my wall. I have a big map tapestry on my wall, and I just remember staring at it, like zoned out. And Alex like, everything's gonna be okay. And I'm like, it's not. Like everything's not okay. Even if
I was trying to be nice.
Even
I was lying. In my head, I'm like, oh,
I knew it would end up okay. But yeah, I just knew like I'm stressed immediately, you know, like it went from like peace and preparation and tranquility to like, oh my God. Okay, we have to make a few phone calls, you know.
It definitely, it like kickstarted the adrenaline for you guys. And you were like, labor's not even here, like quote unquote here yet, but you still like had to start the marathon because so many decisions had to be made, so many phone calls had to be made, so many appointments had to be made. There was a lot going on. Yeah,
and I remember the tech was like, all right, well, I'll let your midwife know and stuff. And she left my house about 3.5 minutes later, and I'm like, hadn't heard from our midwives, and I'm like, I'm just gonna text her. Like, I'm just gonna wait for her to text me. Like, oh my God.
I think you guys texted us at the same time because seeing the text, I think they came in at the same time, and we were just as devastated as you.
Yeah.
I don't even want to say devastated. We were just shocked because we were like, okay, we know what to do, but we also know that some babies need to be born this way, and we just kind of had to be along that journey with you. Yeah. Which is where I want to pause for a second, and I want to know, like, if you guys had to kind of sum up that moment, and maybe even those moments after the tech had left, before getting in the car and coming to see us, like what was, what were you feeling in that moment?
I think real quick, I just want to give listeners a heads up that this is just the beginning. It was just the beginning. Like this, I felt like, oh my God, do I have to go straight to the hospital? Like that's it? This is an option for me anymore?
I think we should talk about that because I think most people will assume yes.
Yeah, because if you were seeing just an OB, there is no other options. Right. Or there is, but they're not, you know, going to be super realistic or work with you or have the even time or patience to like work with you emotionally on how you're feeling about everything. So I didn't know that. I wasn't sure what like midwives were even allowed to do in that moment. But yeah, I just wanted to give that little tidbit of like things got even crazier because we tried to pivot a few times. And yeah, so there's still more to the story. Don't stop listening now. But yeah, so that moment right there, that was a huge turning point. And I would say the only like analogy, which may seem kind of cliche, that I could sum it up is like our world just flipping upside down. Like everything was just different. I was feeling so at peace, and like I can probably talk about this even more later on as it intensified, but you know, you're so eager for labor to come, and like not you, I should speak from I was so excited for labor to come, and I guess what I'm saying is that's what people train to think, you know, like through birth stories or like the, what are the recordings? The affirmations, it's always like, let it come, like receive it, like, you know, just like be open, and it's like birth is gonna just happen. And so all of a sudden, like I have to make decisions, my adrenaline's pumping, like it's surreal, I'm a little bit anxious, you know, and trying to fight that and like just trusting God, but also like I have to think very clearly right now, you know. It was just like so much adrenaline when, like, for weeks actually, we were very big sticklers on when I was going to stop working and making sure I was in my oxytocin bubble, and only, like, my phone was on do not disturb, and I only took phone calls from close people of mine. Like, I was very protective over my mindset, over a lot of things. Like, I did a puzzle for 3 weeks straight leading up to birth because I just wanted to be in, like, my zone and my zen and my chill. And so just to, like, be on, like, such high alert now and be like, go into almost like my nurse brain of, like, we need to make decisions, we need to assess the risk here, we need to, you know, like, all of that was just, like, so different than, like, what I felt at 7 a.m. Like I said, that last piece, slice of heaven. It was just like my world flipped upside down. My brain was in a whole different spot. I almost, like, didn't want labor to start. Like, it was so different than, like, what I'd been preparing for months, you know, to feel. So, yeah. What about you? What was that like? Because you were very comforting. You're like, it's going to be okay. But, like, did you really think it was going to be okay?
I was optimistic just because I figured that's all we could do. But, I mean, there was definitely a part deep inside of me that was like, this is not good. And I didn't prepare myself or research any of this, so I have zero context of what any of this really means or how serious this is. I feel like I don't know when to give up, which is sometimes good and sometimes bad. And I had it in my mind that, like, we're going to figure out a solution. I'm like, I don't know what the solution is yet, but there's going to be a solution. It's going to work out. It's going to be okay. That was kind of my mindset. But I also will say, kind of to piggyback on what you said, I feel like we went from oxytocin bubble to instant fight or flight mode. And that's really where it got super intense because, I mean, it was nonstop. Our hearts were racing. I will say one thing looking back that I feel like we that I feel like we definitely could have done better is, in that moment, let's say the ultrasound tech left our house, I feel like right then and there, we should have stopped and just prayed.
Totally.
And slowed our minds down, slowed our heart rate, slowed our spirit, everything down.
We just got very, like, in the flesh.
It was just like control. Like, how can we control this? How can we fix this? How can we solve this? And I mean, that's definitely my natural, like, state is, like, solve problems. How can we fix this? How can we figure this out? Let's figure this out. So, and I knew that you were like so shocked that you were almost just, like, paralyzed. So I felt like I was the driving force behind, like, okay, well, she's paralyzed and just, like, what do we do? And I'm just, like, want to protect and figure out how can we fix this? How can we find a solution? Which is usually what gets me in trouble when you're trying to share with me your feelings too. So should have known. But yeah, that was the biggest thing was, I think that transition, who knows, maybe it could have been different. I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to put that much weight or pressure on that moment, but we didn't even stop to think, pray, anything. We were just like, go, figure out, which in the moment felt right. But looking back, I'm like, if I was to go through that again, I think that's the thing that I would have done differently. But yeah, it was pretty wild. It was quite the contrast from, it was so chill. We were so relaxed. And then instantly we're just like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And it almost felt like there was, like, a clock, just like, because it was like, okay,
I'm 41 weeks, like, we got to figure out a solution. Christmas is coming, like, you know.
It really was. Every second was, it, like,
and that's
really
why
important.
I think we felt so, like, you know, that desire to, like, oh, we got to figure it out now.
Like that urgency.
That sense of urgency. But yeah, that's so.
Yeah.
It was wild.
It was wild for everybody. Yeah. So then you guys take the very long, I'm sure, drive from your house to the office.
Which is actually only like 20 minutes.
15 minutes, and it felt like 15 hours.
I bet. And I called the midwife, and I was like, hey, can you come meet me up here? She's coming up here anyway. Like, we need to talk to her about options. For those who don't know, doulas don't make those decisions. Obviously, that's in the hands of the medical provider, which would be the midwife in this situation. And, you know, like I said, it really was just kind of a race against time because Megan was already experiencing little bits of labor. We just didn't know how.
Well, and no matter what, as you get to 42 weeks, for sure the clock is over. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you may have little wiggle room after 42 weeks, but, like, after that, breech or not, you know, like, the time was already getting limited. So with this, I'm like, but in my mind, I was like, we have 7 days to figure this out. You know, I'm like, I'm only 41 weeks. Anything could happen all week, you know?
I mean, if you had not been in labor, you would have had 5, 6, 7 days, however long. But I think we all probably intuitively knew that wasn't. That wasn't.
I also, though, feel, and this might jump ahead a little bit, but I was kind of in denial too. Once I found out she was breech, I was like, well, there's not a head pressing on my cervix, so there's no way I'm going into labor. Mm-hmm. Like, I just felt like, oh, that's what opens the cervix, and if there's feet there, like, obviously, I mean, like, logically, I know that people have breech babies all the time, and it is a variation of normal, but I just felt like it wasn't going to happen as fast, or like it probably wasn't gonna happen. I don't even know how to say that because it sounds silly, but I don't know. In my mind, I'm like, oh, okay, good. Then like the only goal now is flipping her. And I'll just say real quickly, just to kind of keep going chronologically, you know, the switch flipped. Alex is like, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna figure out a solution. And so I was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna figure out a solution. That's great. And then I just remember in the car I had a breakdown. I think it was when we were like on Atlantic Boulevard. I can like see it. We're like approaching to turn onto 3rd Street, and I just like hit me, and I'm just like, I just started bawling. He's like, babe, it's okay. And I'm just like, I just don't want them to tell me we have to go to the hospital now. Like, that was my number one thing. I'm like, I just don't want there to be no other options. I'm like, I want to try other stuff first. Like, that's what I knew. I'm like, I just want them to at least have other options for me. And then I kind of like got myself together, and then I walked in the room into the office, and I saw you, and then I lost it again. Because I was just like, I did feel supported even right away, you know? I wasn't just like being told what to do, you know? So that was like really helpful. It's just being met like by my friend, you know, not by like someone in a white coat like telling me what to do. That was
I do remember when you walked in that room, I remember being like, she looks like scared of us. Like you just were like, you didn't know what the next step was going to be. And you know, when you spend 9 months preparing for a home birth, and this is thrown at you, it's like really all of your everything comes out of your brain. You're
well, and I know
like grasping at straws.
There's also like laws, you know, too. Like I wasn't sure, like we hadn't discussed what would happen, what this looks like, because we didn't know to. So I'm just like, I don't even know what they're allowed to tell me I can do, you know. So like that's what I was kind of like, just felt so vulnerable. As I'm like, what do we have options? What options can you give me, you know? So
and I think that's where we should go into now is like what those options were. And we talked about like what you guys were comfortable with and not comfortable with, and we kind of like set off from there. But some of the options are an ECV, which is like an external rotation of baby. You can have them done in a hospital, or we work with a amazing midwife who has a crazy high success rate. She's just a couple hours south of here, and that usually is like the way that we like to lean as home birth midwives for our practice. Our midwives just think it's similar to the care that we give. So it feels like a continuity of care instead of just immediately going to the hospital to go for a ECV with a provider that probably sucks at it anyway. We also were talking about acupuncture, we were talking about chiro, we were talking about massage, we were talking about spinning babies, we were talking about, I mean, I can only imagine the way that your brain was feeling.
And I felt so grateful, honestly, and hopeful. I'm like, oh, like a weight had been lifted. I'm like, okay, there's options. I'm not currently in labor. So that's when the new timer started of like 7 days. Because I'm like, okay, labor's behind me. It obviously didn't work. She tried to come down, wasn't her head. So like now we have 7 days to flip the baby. Was like kind of my goal. But I do remember Mandy, my midwife at the time that, you know, was helping me process all this, was like, you also could just go to the hospital. Like, you don't have to try to flip the baby.
Yeah,
and I am grateful.
That was an option too. It wasn't like they were only trying to force the holistic route down our throats.
No, she was like, this is the clear option that you could make, or we can try a lot of other things, but ultimately it could still all lead to this. Like y'all were very transparent with that, which is good, because I was never, even then, forced into the holistic route. You know, it was all kind of like, here are all of your options from going to the hospital today. You could literally just be like, I don't want to do any of this. Today's your birthday. I'm going to go. Or you can try a couple things, go tomorrow. Like, you're in control. And that is, I think, what you even touched on in the beginning is like, we felt in control the whole time. It's like, all right, what are we comfortable with? And I remember saying, okay, well, that makes me want to throw up. So that's definitely not our first option. Like, no, I want to know that I tried at least something. Yeah. So that's when we started making our phone calls.
Yeah,
we were like rushing around calling everybody we could, because again, other clock that's happening is Christmas is, I mean, this was like Friday at noon. So like offices are closing for the weekend. Saturday, Sunday is going to be Christmas Eve. Christmas Day is on Monday. You know, it's like.
This was December 22nd, that Friday. So
it was hard getting people on the phone.
Well, and that's what Mandy had said too. When she was talking about doing ECV at the hospital, she's like, it sometimes takes days or weeks to get in. It's not a fast process, especially around Christmas. She's like, it's next to impossible. We could try, but like doctors' offices were closing. Like the corporate world of things was not.
We were getting so many voicemails.
I think this all happened at like 4:00.
Yeah, by the time we were actually making phone calls, stuff, it was the afternoon for sure. Yeah.
And we went and got an IV because I think your fluids were...
Yeah, so that was step one. Yeah, my fluid was slightly low, not dangerously low, but for sure if we were going to try to flip the baby or do, acupuncture and massage and all of this, then she needed more space. So Mandy's like, for sure, while we're figuring this all out, just go get some fluid, which thankfully the IV clinic was open. So we went and got 2 bags of fluid. I was still feeling super optimistic at this point because we also had coordinated, we found an acupuncturist, so it could probably fit me in. She wasn't doing much that day. Yeah. And she was really flexible. We are, one of our really close friends is a chiropractor. He was super down to help us. And he even said, I've actually helped a woman in labor flip a breech baby. So I'm like, okay, so it's not too late, so that gave me a lot of hope. And I'll never forget this. And I sometimes even feel embarrassed saying it. Not that I've even told many people, but I remember sending y'all a picture because you're like, text us throughout the day. And I sent a picture to the group chat with my midwives and said, we out here hydrating. While I was getting fluids, because I'm just like, we're gonna flip this baby. I'm getting fluid.
Being like, she's not okay.
Somebody check on Megan.
She is hallucinating.
Something's not right.
She was in a bubble, but it wasn't oxytocin.
Oh my god, no. Yeah, it was. But I was just like, I was forcing myself to feel positive. But then I'd have moments where Alex is like, okay, are you good? And I'm like, this is just really overwhelming. But then I just had to keep myself going. And it
was a roller coaster.
And believing it was going to be okay.
Every 30 minutes there was a new emotion. It was like up, down, up, down.
It was just a lot to process.
We were just making calls. I remember the number one focus for me was finding somebody that we felt like could successfully perform the ECV or flipping the baby. And there was only 3 providers in the state of Florida that really, come highly recommended outside of people that barely do it. Right. So we called the first one. And I think we got the lady at the office to answer, and she's like, yeah, the doctor's not here. She's like,
it's Christmas.
Good luck.
Yeah.
And then we called the second one. The second one was like, no, we can't help you, but here's a third one. And the third one was Fadwah in South Florida. And we called her, and I'll never forget, we called the office. It rang, went to voicemail. And then
I left a voicemail.
You left a voicemail. And then right after you hung up, I'm like, call again. And you're like, I'm not going to call again. I just left a voicemail.
No, you said call from my phone. I'm like, they're not monitoring the different phone numbers that call. They're not staring at caller ID.
Now call from my phone. And you're like, why? I'm like, just do it. I don't know, just call. And she's like, all right, fine, whatever. So you called. And then they answered.
The lady answers literally 5 seconds later. I'm like, oh my God, hi! I was like, there's someone here.
Oh my gosh. I felt so cool. I'm like,
she's probably like, are you okay? What's happening?
Yeah, that was crazy. And so then this lady's like, yeah, actually Fadwah, the midwife who does this ECV and is like the expert of breech deliveries, which we weren't even considering.
We didn't even know she
general, could do that. She's just like the godmother of all that. This lady's like, yeah, sorry, the front desk lady's like, I'll try to get a hold of her, but she's actually in Mexico right now.
Yeah.
And we're just like, oh my God.
She's like, but she comes back tomorrow. I'm like, okay, perfect. Yeah. Well, this is our only glimmer of an option.
And I remember just begging that lady. I'm like, please call us back.
And you want to know what's crazy?
What?
That, to go along with the fact that she called. We were on our way to the chiropractor, so I got fluids. We were headed to the chiropractor, and then we weren't meeting the acupuncture lady till 7 or 8 at night.
8 o'clock.
And, but when we called the lady the second time, when you're like, call from my phone, it was 4:55 or something. It was
4:59.
Yeah. Okay, it wasn't 4:59. It was
4:57.
It was 1 minute.
Okay, it was 5 minutes. Whatever. It was within 5 minutes of them. What?
But she even said, she's like, I was about to turn the phones off, and you would have only got voicemails. But because we called the second time, it came through, and she happened to answer it. 4:59.9.
99999.
But yeah, so crazy. That was crazy. So that was a new glimmer of hope. So I just feel like I was given these little seeds of hope, where I'm like, okay, well, at least I don't have to go straight to surgery. Maybe I'll at least get fluid and go to the chiropractor. And then I'm like, oh, wait, what's ECV? Oh, someone can do it. All right. And then we actually talked to Fadwah. We actually pulled up at the chiropractor office, and she called us from Mexico. And
what a sweetheart.
So amazing.
Great lady.
Shout out Midwife 360.
Yes, you're the best.
We got to tag them.
So good.
And I don't know if she still has her dreads, but if she does, those things are awesome.
Yeah.
She does.
She looks amazing.
No, she's not going back now.
She has wisdom.
Yeah, you can just tell.
Each dread has a story. I know for a fact. She's so cool.
But anyway, so she calls us and she's like asking us all the questions and stuff. And I'm not sure how, so I'm not going to speak to the logistics and the law around it, because breech delivery is kind of...
She's a different kind of midwife than what our
Okay, I was going to say, in certain states you can't even do it.
She legally can, because she has a different accreditation.
Sweet.
Which is why she can do breech babies.
Which we didn't know originally.
We didn't even know until we were on the phone with her.
Right. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And
well, because she told us that ECV at this point was probably a waste. She's on the phone with us.
She almost didn't even want to take our money. She was like, you should just plan to, if you want to come down here, just plan to come down here and have your baby breech. And I'm like, could we at least try and then come back up to Jacksonville, which you said a few hours. When you put it in the GPS.
It's like 4.5.
Plus holiday traffic.
Tampa. No, it wasn't holiday traffic. It's like 4.5 hours.
No, Fort Lauderdale.
Whatever. South Florida.
Tampa's west.
Somewhere in
West,
South Florida.
East, South. Whatever soggy waffles. I don't know.
You don't know.
All I know
it is
is
Fort
like
Lauderdale.
4 hours.
It was far.
Fort Lauderdale.
That's all we
It's a
know.
solid
Yeah,
4
with holiday
hours.
traffic, it was not super close. So, we're going to drive down there, which is like, looking back is comical in a way, but it was like, it was the
I had an Airbnb ready to go. I had the spot.
Okay, wait, don't jump ahead.
Oh.
So yeah, we were like, okay, well, if we drive down tomorrow and then you fly in, we can try ECV. She's like, I'll try it. If you want to pay me the money, if you want to try it, I will definitely try it. But 41 weeks, I'm not sure.
She said it's very unlikely that it's going to flip the baby.
But I'm like, I think we could try. And she was like, the thing is, once she's in the right position, you will likely go into labor though. So and
there was a risk of your water breaking and sending you into spontaneous labor.
Exactly. So the chances of us getting back to Jacksonville with our birth team and our family and everything were very slim at this point. So we were and she only does home birth. She doesn't have a birth center. So we were pretty much okay, well, it gave us hope, but it was also kind of crazy.
And she had another client or patient
that was like due about the same time.
That was due around the same time. She's like, I'll be honest with you. She's like, I'll take you on as a patient, but if my other mom, who I've been working with for the last 9 months, goes into labor at the same time as you, I can't help you.
And the other midwife that was working with her didn't have the same...
She was like...
Okay, but wait, I will say this. We're going to get into the nitty gritty. I'm just going to share all the details because originally, and again, Fadwah met us 5 minutes ago, so no, I don't want this to come across negatively in any way, but she's like, there is someone else that would be comfortable laboring with you. It's kind of just where she left it. She's like, she was saying until I could get there.
Right.
And we didn't necessarily understand that.
Yeah, I was like, there's two midwives.
That can take,
So,
we heard what we wanted to hear.
So, like I said, there's little seeds that are being planted, and now there's like this huge seed of like, we should just pack our stuff tomorrow, leave and go down there. We'll get an Airbnb, have a home birth in an Airbnb, whether the baby flips or not, we'll have her breech. Like, I'm having a vaginal delivery. This is going to freaking happen. And it was like a actual realistic option. And
I was so hyped.
We were like, this is kind of crazy, but it's going to freaking work. We knew we were going to find a solution, and like we thought that was it. So I got adjusted, and even at this point, I'm thinking, I'll get adjusted, and I hope the baby flips. But like I also had so much hope and like this whole other backup plan, which now we've progressed through plan A, plan B, and like that would be plan like D or E. You know, would be like having a home birth in an Airbnb 5 hours from home. You know, with a different midwife that I just met.
The people who are listening are probably like, oh,
are you okay? Oh, why didn't you just go to the hospital? But I'm just like, this is kind of crazy, but I think it's going to work. You know, it seems like a viable option. I'm not in labor. We have time. Let's go.
I think just real quick, you just said, why didn't we go to a hospital? Just so people understand, I think at that moment, we didn't really ask the questions or understand that we thought, or I thought at least, if you have a C-section, your first baby, it's next to impossible to have a vaginal birth after that.
I didn't think that.
No, I didn't.
No, I just knew it would take a lot more work mentally, physically.
Okay.
It's just you're a different risk now.
Yeah.
So I just knew it was different. I knew it wasn't impossible, and I knew people have successful VBACs all the time.
I didn't know that. I thought this was a one and done, or you're.
No, it's just like if you have a vaginal birth first, it's kind of like green lights all the way.
Right.
You know, like I shouldn't say that because I'm sure there's outliers, but for the most part, it's a pretty good indicator of how future births will go. Yeah. Whereas if you have a C-section first, there's just still big unknowns. You just still haven't had a vaginal birth. Yeah. So I was just like, I just want to do it. I want to do it the first time. I don't want to, take any long routes around what I actually want. I'm gonna freaking make it happen. So that's where we were. I got adjusted, which, again, I'm still feeling hopeful. I would love for her to flip, but like I said, I knew she'd been in the same position for a very long time. So it's kind of like, now I could allow myself to feel doubt that she was gonna flip. Like at first I was like, no, I believe she can flip. But then I'm like, let's be honest, she's been in this position for a long time. I already did spinning babies. I did the mile circuit. I've done stuff. Right. Like I'd been going to the chiropractor. So I wasn't, I was like, if this doesn't work, at least we have another option. Like I was just kind of like ready to go through all my options at that point. So yeah, we got adjusted and then went to the acupuncturist, which I might add, I had hardly eaten this day, which was horrible, but when you're stressed and things are happening so fast, you're not even hungry. That's how I felt. So yeah, it was just kind of crazy. So much adrenaline, so many decisions. Yeah. Then we talked to Fadwah, and then there's like all these decisions happening, and she also, something like the conversation she had with us was very real, which I can appreciate. She said that breech birth vaginally isn't always safe. Right. Which isn't something I researched or knew a lot about, but it was kind of a hard pill to swallow. Totally. She was like, just so you know, the decisions you're making, the outcomes for a baby are, this right here is like when we're like, oh, okay. She said the outcomes for a baby are much better for a C-section, but the outcomes for a mom are sometimes less fortunate with a C-section. Especially if you get a spinal block and there's all these medications involved and you're getting cut open and you could bleed. There's so much more risk for the mom in a C-section, but the baby comes straight out. And she's like, but with breech birth, it's a little tricky. It's not always as safe for the baby, but it's much safer for you.
But statistically, and I don't remember what the statistics were, it wasn't a massive increase of risk for the baby. But she was just laying it all out there, and she was very transparent.
I just remember us just being silent, being like, okay, how do we make that decision? Yeah. And she kind of talked us through it, very, very, just frank,
which I think that for people who don't know about home birth midwives, I think that people probably assume that they're just like, oh, you just have your baby at home, like silly willy-nilly, like despite whatever happens along the pregnancy or anything. But it's like there are serious protocols and risk factors and things that they take into consideration because they're not going to give you false hope.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially y'all's situation was so much more intense.
And she just met me over the phone.
Yeah, you guys would be driving multiple hours with, all of these different factors. I think that probably felt very heavy, but it was a very crucial part of your story.
Totally, yeah. But it was just kind of like, because we were like, oh my God, she can do it. Oh, yay. Yeah. And then she, was just like, I just want to kind of talk through everything. I know we just met, but, if you're going to drive down here and expect, it's a big ask. Like, she's going to fly home from Mexico and deliver a breech baby for someone she met less than 12 hours ago, pretty much. She just laid it all out there and it just felt heavy. All of a sudden we're like, okay. So we're like hopeful. And then like just talking about the, roller coaster we were going through, we're like excited, hopeful, nervous, scared, excited, hopeful. Like there's the options, but wow, the options are kind of heavy now that you think about it and put it like that. So just still kind of like so much to process. Oh, I was so pregnant and hormonal.
Yeah. And like, how did you sleep that night? Like, how could you go to bed?
I don't think I did. So yeah, we got adjusted and then we went to get acupuncture. Did you ask a question? Did we answer a question? Are we good?
Yeah,
we
keep rolling.
Keep
going,
okay.
Yeah.
So we went to get acupuncture, which I will say, I think I've been to a chiropractor that may have done like some acupuncture before. I don't even know the lady's business name, so I don't feel like I'm talking any type of way about her, because I'm not gonna, you know, put even who it is out there, because I don't even remember. It was just some random experience. Someone we found that would take me 2 days before Christmas.
Well, no, we found her through a friend of a friend.
No, I know she came highly recommended, but I just mean it's not like someone I'd seen or a provider I knew.
Because it was like 8:30 at night. We didn't really know. I mean, we kind of knew, but it was just like the whole experience was just kind of different than anything we've ever experienced. I guess. So there was that, and then because it's, you know, I want to get to the good part.
Yeah, go for it.
An hour in. So
almost.
So then Olivia comes over, our doula.
Well, okay, so acupuncture. Okay, so you're skipping over that.
Yeah.
Well, all I wanted to say about that is that, you know, the nature of acupuncture is like working through your nervous system and stuff. And she has to use a special kind of incense, and there's like this special kind of process, and the type of neural pathways that connect to your uterus are on your toes, and the incense she had to put on me, they're like kind of small, and it was kind of burning my toes.
It was not ideal.
So when you say the experience is different, you know, I think some people may have got acupuncture and it was just like quick.
No, it was like a pyro.
And because the incense were so tiny, she had to rotate each toes every couple minutes.
And I was talking to her, distracting her.
And so my toes were actually literally burning. And I've just had a day, okay? Like, this is the most emotional and intense day of my entire life. And then she's like, I'll give you some space, because now you just gotta like lay on your side for 15 minutes. And she left, and I sobbed. Like, it just all hit me. I'm like, I hated that. I didn't want to be in her stupid office anymore. I'm just kidding. It wasn't stupid. I'm being dramatic. Just so you know. And for people who don't know me, they're like, wow, she's being rude. No, I'm just being very dramatic. This is how I felt. I'm like, get me out of here. I don't know why. Like, my toes freaking hurt now. I'm so hungry. I just want to go be with my friend, my doula, who's going to help me and like support me in a way that I actually really need right now. Did I mention I'm hungry? Like, I'm just done with all of this. You know, so I was just like, it was the end. Like, and she came back and she's like, you okay? You got like 10 minutes left. I'm like, can you just take all this off me and I'm gonna go? Like, and I was very nice, and she's giving me all the instructions to do whatever else at home I need to do to follow up. But I was like, get me.
I just spent $250. You better finish that 10 minutes.
Well, and I felt that guilty too. I'm like, we came here, and she like made time on her schedule.
Like, ran in today between all the treatments.
It was
just intense. But yeah, so we did grab food super quickly, which was also a whole nother experience that I guess isn't worth mentioning, because
that's a story for another day, but it is a good story. We will have to hear that one day.
The server was being super chatty, and I'm like, you don't even know right now, okay? So we finally, he is a great guy, but I was just not there for it.
Not the time.
Bad timing. So we got home. You came over. That was exactly what I needed, and you knew it. You were like your intuition kicked in. It was very serene, which of course now we're like actually trying to flip the baby. And this part I did put in my birth story when I typed it out, but I just remember asking you, and I hope this doesn't, you know, like put you on blast. I don't think so, but I just remember, you know, again, going through the roller coaster that I've been on all day, you know, feeling hopeful, then, you know, whatever. I'm still like, well, we're still gonna meet with Olivia. She knows how to do spinning babies and all these things. And I just remember asking you, like, because I just didn't know, have you ever actually flipped a baby? Like, hoping you were like, actually one time, yeah. And you're like, I haven't, you know, like had that opportunity. Not that you couldn't, I'm sure you could with the techniques you're very good at.
Well, but in your situation, no, I'd never flipped a baby in labor. At 41 weeks.
Yeah, like, no, for sure. I'm sure you've been a part of it and you know all the things to do, but it was just like not really a great timing for a baby to flip. So you're like, I think you also, again, wanted to give realistic expectations. So you honestly said, no, I haven't. And so I'm like, you know, then that's just kind of a pill to swallow. I'm just like, all right, well, we're going to try. I still have hope. Here we are. Let's go for it. And so then, of course, to flip the baby, all your muscles have to be relaxed, you know, like all of this. So it's like this, like, it's so, I don't even know how to describe what I went through mentally to try my absolute best to have any ounce of hope and like, I don't know what to say besides hope. There's another word I'm trying to think of, but just like expectation that it could happen, because I know how the mind and body are connected, and any type of mental resistance I felt, I knew would immediately translate to my body and baby, you know? So like, that was tough, you know, like really trying to like let my guard down. It was vulnerable, I guess I could say, you know, just like having to trust that maybe it could happen and allowing myself to believe that.
Right.
So, yeah, it's pretty much, I mean, I think you came to my house like 9:30 at night.
Yeah.
And then of course we're like friends, so you know, we're like hanging out till midnight, and I'm just like, I should probably rest because I think we're going on a road trip tomorrow. Or like,
we made a whole game plan. We decided, like, you know, of course, like the Christmas thing was like coming into play too, and like the birth photographer and I, we were like, I mean, we could go, like we really could do it. We could
like, you
make
would go
it happen, and you know, we just wanted to support you in any way possible. But then the next day happened.
Yeah.
And then it was like another set of plans, you know?
Yeah, there's more, plans.
So then, you know.
So yeah, well, I knew I had to have another ultrasound. Mandy recommended that to make sure my fluid levels had gone up, especially now that I'm like pretty much leaving her care and going to be going 5 hours from home on a road trip and stuff. We wanted to make sure my fluid levels were even going to support like what we wanted, which was for the baby to flip. So I went to bed that night, and you're like, you know, the baby could totally just like flip while you sleep. And I remember like, again, just like allowing myself to rest, wanting so badly to just hope that could happen. And I remember like waking up to pee in the middle of the night and then waking up the next morning, and she's just totally still in the same spot she's been in for months. And so we wanted to confirm that also in the ultrasound, and then also check my fluid levels. And then Fadwah had asked us to also see if we get a more clear picture of exactly what type of breech she was. Because her feet could be folded all the way up by her face. She could be sitting on her feet. There's like different things, different variations, and that would be helpful for her to know. And so yeah, 9 a.m. the next morning was my ultrasound, which she was not able to come to my house this time. We had to drive all the way 45 minutes from the house. So we're going to bed super late after the longest, most emotionally intense day of our life. And then we woke up at like 7 a.m. to get on the road by 8 a.m. to, you know, be at her office by 9 a.m. because she was squeezing us in before her busy day. And on the way there, I remember being like, oh gosh, that acupuncture really made my uterus tight. This is the part of the denial. This is what I was talking about.
In massive denial. I'm like, you're fine.
Well, because even when I left the acupuncture, you know, she's like stimulating my uterus. Like that's part of what would flip the baby.
Yeah.
But also that's what puts people in labor, you know, but I was like, just like not even allowing my mind to go there. Again, I'm thinking, but her head's not even on my cervix. So that's obviously impossible. Obviously being sarcastic. But yeah, so I'm like, gosh, my uterus is tight. That's crazy. And at this point we hadn't really updated a lot of our family either, because we were kind of just waiting to make sure she didn't flip. And like, we didn't want to scare everyone if it was going to work out perfectly fine. And at this point, we may have called my mom on the way. Or maybe it was when we left. But
when we left.
Okay, so we got the ultrasound the next morning at 9 a.m. She was definitely still breeched, just like we knew, and we saw that she was sitting on her feet. So her feet were, in fact, on my cervix, but that was actually a favorable position that maybe she could turn, because she wasn't super engaged in my pelvis. If her butt was pressing on my cervix, that would have been less favorable for flipping the baby, or, you know, different things like that. So I was like thinking that was positive news. My fluid levels had gone up, so we got all the news we needed. And so originally, I think we were wanting to like leave the next day on Christmas Eve to drive down in the morning. But then as my uterus felt more tight, I'm like, maybe we should just at least be down there just in case. Because if I go into labor, I'll just birth her breech, and we won't even try the ECV. Like that was now my plan, you know, so we talk about plan A, B, C. So I'm like, maybe let's just get down there and then we'll just plan to have her breeched, because Fadwah flies in tonight. And so, you know, first thing tomorrow, who knows, maybe I'll be in labor. And so we're like, let's just leave today. So we call both of our moms. Well, we called my mom, and then your mom's house is on the way. So we stopped by and we're just like, oh, hey, real quick, want to let you know, we're probably leaving for South Florida. We have an Airbnb. We have a couple Airbnbs we're about to book. We have a different midwife. This is happening. The baby's in the wrong position. Like, they're just like, we're just like, pray for us. You know, we'll keep you posted. And they're just like, what just happened? You know, like now we didn't want to take them on the long drawn out emotional roller coaster we've been. We wanted to like have our update and have our plan, but the plan kept changing. So like, well, don't call them yet. So that's when things kind of started to intensify. And I remember being like on the phone with my mom going through these things and being like, hold on. Okay, all right, sorry. And she's like, are you like in labor? Like, this seems a little intense. I'm like, no, I'm not in labor. Like, I was in such denial. I'm like, no, it must be the acupuncture. Like, cause she even I don't even, it doesn't matter. But like, there was little parts of me that are like, oh yeah, that one thing she did, she said it could make my belly tight, you know, or like make me feel crampy. So I'm like, it has to be that, obviously, you know. So you stopped by and hugged your mom. Do you want to add anything? We've been talking for a long time.
No, I just want to get to the good stuff.
I feel like this is all good stuff, right?
It is. Every detail, there's just like so much to it. But so then you guys get back home, you're frantically trying to pack. You're like, okay, we got to get out of here.
Everywhere, yeah.
Like, we just got to get down there. And I remember Alex being like, I just have to get Megan down there. That's all we have to do. Like, one goal. You know, and there was obviously a million other things to follow.
She started going to labor at this point.
Yeah, she was.
I think we all were pretty... By about noon on Saturday, we all were like, she's like going into labor.
Yep.
So now the clock was racing against 7 days for the 42 weeks to now like, we just got to get down there before 9 p.m. because that's when Fadwah gets there.
Yep.
And that's what we got to do.
Yep.
And at this point now, Alex like, you just need to lay in bed and rest, because we were like now wanting to slow labor down.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, well, should I at least be looking at the Airbnbs? He's like, no, don't do anything. So I'm like just a sitting duck, like going into labor, you know, while everybody else has to get my stuff together, plan our Airbnb. We're leaving for a road trip. I can't pack any of my stuff. I just need to focus on slowing down labor. How do you do that though? Like in your mind, physically?
And like planning for like the baby's things. Like obviously you plan to have the baby at home. So like
I don't have anything packed.
Yeah, packing for yourself, packing for your baby, packing for an overnight stay in another city.
Car seat.
Yeah, like so many things. And so then I remember you called me and I came over because you were going to take the birth pool. And at this time, we thought the plan was still within the next hour, y'all are leaving.
Yeah. Well, it went from, we should probably try to get down there by tonight to like, we need to get on the road. Like things just kept like intensifying.
Within an hour, you were like, you were doing the moan, whatever, you know, whatever they call that when you're in labor.
Is there a name?
The primal noises. I mean, it quickly switched from like you being like happy-go-lucky and like making jokes and like being optimistic to you were silent and making these noises, and we would all look around the room at each other when she was doing this. And I remember
I was like, whoa. I
think I remember hearing your first contraction like that, and I remember being like, I'm just gonna pop outside, and immediately called Mandy. I'm like, hey, there's a new plan, another plan, and I need you to get here now. And she was like, okay, I'm gonna be there in literally like 8 minutes.
And I didn't know you called her, which is probably the best thing, you know, like because you didn't let me know things were intensifying. You're just like, maybe we should call Mandy soon. She's probably already on her way when you said that. But I remember the question that, I mean, I want to get you a t-shirt that says this, or maybe it should be my shirt, I don't know, is how do you feel about getting in a car right now?
I remember saying it just like that.
Because
like so you were like laying in the bed in your fancy, I wish we could have a picture of like the bed that they have, the sleep number. And I remember you being like, just, you know, we were talking about the Airbnb and like what to pack. And I was like, you definitely need like your Perry bottle and like all of these things. And she was like going down the list out loud to me. And I remember being like, so you just had to stop for a couple of those past contractions. Like, are you sure you really want to get in the car right now?
Yeah, road trip would really suck. Like, I was trying to be way too optimistic.
You were saying yes still, and I said, realistically, how are you going to do?
I was just thinking about like, okay, if I have to pee like at a rest stop right now, like it started to kind of
at a 7-Eleven.
Like it started to kind of hit me.
Having a contraction like on hands and knees in a 7-Eleven. Could you imagine that?
No, but I think this is the thing. That's
a crazy story.
I wish I would have now that you mention it. No, but I think the thing now, I talked about being in denial. I mean, I have been with friends in labor and they've labored for 37 hours. Yeah.
That's
and
true.
So that's the hope, the little seed of hope I was holding on to at that moment is like, what if it stalls again? You know, like it can get intense and then I could get another full night's rest, you know? So like, I didn't think in that moment that I was going to stay in that intensive labor for any extended amount of time. I thought, again, this is
maybe a couple hours later.
Yeah, it's intensifying, but that doesn't mean this is it.
That's true.
Thanks for listening to part 1 of our birth story. Hop over to part 2 to hear how things somehow got even more chaotic before we ultimately made the tough decision that led to emergency surgery and the birth of our beautiful baby girl. In part 2, we will also share the lessons that we took away from this entire experience, as well as how we were able to heal so that we can show up as our best for our daughter.